Should we sing happy birthday to Pete's daughter?
No, we should not do that. Sounds
I think I
terrible.
should make the podcast. I think we should name the podcast Pete's whichever daughter's name. Just name it that. Happy birthday to her.
No, they're gonna punch me in the face and say something about don't ever put my daughter's name in your mouth or something like that. And I gotta deal with getting my ass kicked. Welcome to the All Pop No Culture podcast. I am your host this week, Kevin. I am joined this week by Andrew and Andy, and not Pete. He is out celebrating his daughter's birthday. I think she is 35 or 36. I'm not sure. Pete doesn't look a day over 80, so it's hard to tell. But he claims he's going to try and drop in, but knowing Pete, there's almost zero chance of that happening. So plus, without him here to make the show run 5 hours extra long, we'll probably be done before he's done anyways. So for those of you new to the show, we are a pop culture centered podcast talking primarily about TV and movies, sometimes video games, sometimes music, sometimes, I don't know, whatever else falls into pop culture. But this week, I think it's going to be primarily TV and movies, and a little bit of, in the second half, we'll talk about Lost and where we're at in that. We're in season 2 there. So I think what we're going to do this week is start off with Mr. Andrew, and you're going to tell us everything amazing that you've been watching, maybe a couple crappy things you've been watching, and everything in between.
All right. Well, I'm going to try to keep this short, and I'm going to try to keep it positive. I wanted to keep it positive, but actually this is going to be a bit of a rant, and I'll tell you why. So I've had a love-hate relationship with this industry called anime. I'm a big proponent of some shows. If you like me, or if you want me to like you, tell me you like, obviously, Attack on Titan, or tell me you like Neon Genesis Evangelion, tell me you like Robotech, tell me you like Mobile Suit Gundam, okay? That's a pretty thin sliver, okay? There's lots of other anime out there. So, and some of the recent stuff like Arcane, which is really kind of anime, but not really, but like, and then of course, even Castlevania, which came out a few years ago, loved it, okay? Now, I've got friends who are recommending a show called Demon Slayer on Hulu. So one thing about me, though, is I am very big on character design. And this is something that, not a lot of people get, but I'm going to try to explain it. Okay.
You mean character design as in visual, or character design as in
of the character? Okay. Yes. So, as anime has progressed, I've noticed that it's gotten a lot more like cartoonish. Okay. So a lot of the 70s and 80s anime, the proportions were more like real humans. Okay. Then the 90s comes out, and you've got Dragon Ball Z with like people with gigantic heads, and their fighting style is like all that stuff. Can't do it. Okay. So I turn on Demon Slayer tonight because I'm going to, like, you know what? It's been recommended to me for about a year. Let me turn this stuff on. And literally in the first episode, probably 20 minutes in, a guy gets a nosebleed. The nose is like spouting like a fire hydrant. And then when he gets up, his eyes pop out of his head and they start rotating. And I took a picture of it, and I sent it to my friend and say, see, this is why I can't watch your show. I'm done. I'm out, So I know Demon Slayer is like, a show that people are talking about, but
yeah, it's a big deal right now.
About character design. And if you are too cartoonish, I am out. Okay. Going back to the one that I keep talking about it. Attack on Titan is so realistic that every season you actually see the characters grow up, and they're actually changing the way they look. Okay. Whereas cartoons or animation before that, you never really see them age. Not really. Like, Transformers did it with Spike Wiki between the series and then the movie, but like beyond that, you don't really see that. So it matters to me. Okay. So I wanted to like your show. I really did. But when I see that goofy behavior and that goofy drawing, what it tells me is that you're trying to be serious, but you're not serious. And even if the subject matter is serious, it's goofy, So no, I can't get into it. Write me, leave comments, tell me why I should care about your damn show. But I can't. I'm out, with that, I'm just going to talk a little bit about one more show that I do like, which is, again, Neon Genesis Evangelion, why I like that one. So that show had really, really good character designs, but it also dealt with like real themes. They were very psychological. You're talking about a kid named Shinji Ikari, whose mom died off screen. Okay. We don't know, but there's more to it about where his mom actually is. Okay. His dad is like estranged, doesn't really care about him, treats him really bad, but he is the head of this like government agency that is in charge of these Evangelions, which are basically mecha, but they're biological mecha that can only be piloted by special kids. And Shinji can pilot Evangelion Unit 1. So his dad calls him from the orphanage, basically, or whatever, to join up at Nerve to fight these like crazy ass like monsters called angels. And these angels, basically, if they merge with like this thing inside of this like central dogma thing, it will cause the end of the world. So I'm doing hopefully a decent job of explaining just how big the storytelling is of Evangelion. And that's just like scratching the surface. But it's the themes of alienation, the themes of depression, the themes of, love, parental love, abandonment. All those things are dealt with in Evangelion, along with religious allegory and post-apocalyptic stuff, because this all takes place after, like, I think a third of the world has been obliterated by what's called second impact. So anyway, that was, a little bit of what Evangelion's about. And as far as Demon Slayer goes, I just see a bunch of Dragon Ball Z painted people fighting each other and screaming and getting nosebleeds and having their eyes pop out and rotate in opposite directions. So I'm out.
So real quick, actually, Andy, go ahead. Ask your question first. I got a question afterwards, but.
So remember in the 90s on MTV, they had
Neon Flux?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in comparison to the shit show that you don't like and the one that you just love, where does Aeon Flux, where does that stand?
I like the character designs there. They are a bit weird because they're very long and thin.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there was actually a show that was on Cartoon Network in the early zeros. And I want to say it was Alexander or something like that. It was like Alexander the Great. And I remember the music was really cool too. I think it was done by the same animation studio. They're very long faced and just very kind of like dull. I can do that. I can watch that, because at least that way it's still a slick aesthetic and they're not ridiculous. You're not going to see googly eyes, blah, blah, blah. So I can do that.
I think I tried, was it Full Metal Alchemist? I tried to watch some of that and it did the same thing.
Yeah, yes, dude.
Kevin, because it pops out of nowhere. It seems like it's really realistic. And then all of a sudden it breaks into something weird. And I was like, pick a style, because it doesn't work if you don't.
Dude, I'm getting goosebumps. First of all, Full Metal Alchemist is legitimately the other one that people tried to get me into. Yep. And I was out in literally 15 minutes because I'm like, I can't do the character designs because you guys look like Yu-Gi-Oh. Like, if you look like Yu-Gi-Oh, I'm out. Sorry, can't be done. And so, I mean, and I feel like that kind of animation gives anime a bad name. It makes people think, oh, this is all it is. But I'm telling you, this is,
because it feels like a kid's cartoon at that point.
Yes, it's kiddie. And it's AOT, man. I'm telling you guys, like,
that one,
it's not. And it's different.
So I was going to ask you though, what is the right way? Because I've never watched it and I've always wanted to. What is the right way to watch Neon Genesis? Because I know it started a million years ago,
1995,
and they've bounced, and they've skipped for a long time and taken years off and done it's not reboots, right? They don't reboot it, they pick up, but it's down the line, right?
All right. So basically, and I'm so glad you asked this question. So basically, this is the way Neon Genesis Evangelion works. So there is the 26 episode series that was between 95 and 96. I believe that might still be on Netflix. And if it's not, it's probably on Amazon. Either way, you watch those 26 episodes. Okay. Now, episodes 25 and 26 were made when they ran out of money. So basically, the director told the story in the heads of the three main characters, but you don't see what's happening outside of their heads, basically. That's how psychological it gets. People were pissed. This is some bullshit. This is a bullshit ending. So then the guy was like, okay, all right. Y'all want the real ending? Let's do the real ending. So they had a movie called End of Evangelion. And that was where I entered, because when I saw this movie, all I saw was like, can I talk about a little bit about the ending? Like, it's hard. It's not spoiling it. Actually, yeah. All I saw was crazy ass shit with people exploding into orange goo, giant like, beings appearing on top of the earth. It was just so surreal. I'm like, what am I watching? Anyway, what I was watching was like what was happening outside. So the movie then kind of is the real ending. From there, the show was such a hit that in 2007, there was Rebuild of Evangelion. Now, whether it's a sequel or a reboot, I'm not going to say until you actually watch it. So the first two films are basically a retelling of like the first, I'd say, first 2/3 of the series, okay? But by the end of the second movie, it kind of goes off the rails and it's like a completely different series. And then movies 3 and 4 are a completely new ending. And then you get kind of like, okay, so is this a reboot or is this actually a sequel to like the original series? And was it like a fucking loop? And I gotta say, the fourth film actually ended everything on a good note. But now I want to see what happened between the fourth film and the third film, because there is a bit of a time skip. So I would just say, and they're only like 25 minutes an episode. So it's a really quick watch. And there's a little bit of silliness in the first part of the show, but by like the last third, it gets really dark and serious, and it's really cool. So I highly recommend Evangelion.
Okay, cool. I'm curious. So my brother's daughter, she's a senior in high school. She is a giant anime fan.
Okay.
Like she draws the anime, she does all that stuff. If we ever wanted to have like a podcast focused on anime and have a guest person come on, she would. She knows anime probably more than you. Like she loves it day, night, morning, afternoon. Like it'd be interesting, and also I think it'd be interesting to have somebody that is clearly our junior give her feedback on the current state of anime.
I would say basically anime has changed a lot. Like I can't even call myself an anime fan anymore because the 80s and 90s stuff is not what it is today. Like most of the stuff, but before anime was really focused on what's called mecha. So it was very focused on machines. And now anime basically is just like anything that's drawn in a Japanese style that could talk about high school or whatever. Like the subject matter isn't as focused on like it's really broadened out. And I think that's why anime is so popular now, because My Hero Academia, I have no idea what that's about. Apparently it's a big deal, but
yeah, my kids like it though, so that tells me I probably won't.
Exactly. So it's like, so yeah, I'm from a different era. It's like talking about rock and roll music or something. It's like, that's their old shit, right? But Attack on Titan is like the end. Evangelion are closer to like the original stuff than like Demon Slayer or My Hero Academia or the countless other anime that's out there, which is more bubblegummy and fun and to me kind of silly. Honestly.
Yeah, like for me, I think I was at my peak anime in like first couple of years of college. Like I caught Ninja Scroll.
Yeah.
I own a copy of that somewhere. I got what's it called? The
Ghost in the Shell?
No, old from when I was a kid. It was on the same time as the Transformers. They were on they had a ship, so they were on a ship, and it was called the Argo.
Yamamoto's Star Blazers.
Star Blazers, yeah. I've got that on DVD somewhere too.
Nice.
So like I definitely watched when I was a kid, but the way that anime was presented to us as kids was just cartoons. Like it wasn't really anime, right? We had Transformers and we had Robotech and we had Star Blazers and we had these shows that were just on TV, right? And now if you want to watch anime, I mean, it's easier now that we're streaming, but there was a period of time whenever you wanted to watch anime,
it was hard.
You had to go buy it. Yeah, you had to buy it. There was no streaming service for it because there weren't streaming services. So it was harder to get a hold of. And so it was a little more niche than it is now.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember, there is a show that I watched in the last few years that I liked. And it was like they were like the Knights of King Arthur, and they had a tournament every few years. But
was it called Ronin Warriors?
No, Ronin Warriors is dope. I loved Ronin Warriors. But
that was
90s.
Yeah,
that was 90s.
Mm-hmm.
But this was in the last few years, and I, for the life of me, can't remember who it was, but like, or what it's called now. But it was like I think King Arthur is actually a girl. The character is female. I'll have to find it because I really can't remember what it's called, but I really enjoyed it. They had a few different versions of it. Like the tournament would happen again, and it would happen in like a different time. And so a couple of, I don't know if they were later or earlier because they kind of released out of order, or the story was out of order from when they released. So I'm not sure what was when. I'll have to find it and see if you've seen it. But I liked it. It was not cartoony, but it did have, you know, a little touch of the relationship shit in there. But it was cool. Like, I love good, like, action-packed anime that, like you said, isn't ridiculous. Like I like I said, I tried to watch I'm Full Metal Alchemist, and like 5 minutes in I was like, nah, I'm good. It doesn't make any sense to me when you try and make it look at least semi-real and then you do something way over the top realistic, or sorry, ridiculous, and it just doesn't jive with my brain. Like, it just doesn't work.
It takes me out of the story. The two last things I'll say before I pass the mic, like the DC boys, is that thankfully another thing about the 90s and 80s is I think they took the voice work more seriously. So you can actually watch the dub version of Evangelion, I would say, and you're fine as far as the original series. Then when you get rebuilds, subs. And then I would also recommend a movie called, of course, obviously, what's it called? Oh God, Akira. I do think it's overrated. I do think Akira is overrated, but it's the classic. And then I'd also recommend one called Vampire Hunter D. That one came out, I want to say 86. Classic. And it was done by the same people who did Akira and Robotech. So and the voice work on that one is good as well. I highly recommend that one. Horror film, and it's definitely gory and dark and deals with a vampire who is half human, half vampire. And he's a vampire hunter, but he's a vampire himself.
Yeah, awesome. I think that's what made that style of anime cool, is when it was, I don't want to say over the top, but when they just felt like they could do whatever they want. That's what made Ninja Scroll cool. It was just crazy. They just did whatever they want, you know? I think in Ninja Scroll there was violence.
Oh yeah.
There was sex. There was, there was everything. Like, it's crazy. And it's not like porn, you're not just watching anime porn. It's part of the story, and it made sense. And that's kind of what made it cool. So yeah, I would say that I'm an anime fan, but not an enthusiast, or maybe the other way around. But like, I'm not hardcore. Like, I definitely can't name off a ton of anime. I know people that have definitely watched a whole lot more than me. But I know what I like. So if I start trying to watch something and it burns me out, I'm like, I'm good.
Me and you are a lot alike that way.
Yeah, I think so.
I already texted Kylie. I want to get her top 10 of anime shows in order and send it to the group chat, and just get Andrew's feedback to see.
I'd love to see it. I'm actually especially curious to see if it's anything from like before 2000. That's what
yeah. She's recommended. She's on my ass for so many things to watch, and I'd be curious to see where she falls in line with what you're talking about right now, because as much as she's an 18-year-old girl in the world right now, she is an old ass soul.
If she says
she
Gundam,
watches old shit.
If she says Gundam, then we're friends for life. Seriously,
Well,
if she says Gundam, it's a wrap.
she's at senior ball tonight. I texted her. I'm sure I won't hear back tonight, but I'll feed the text chat when I hear back from her on her top 10.
I found I found the one that I was thinking of. It's called Fate Stay. So it's like Fate/Stay.
Yeah, that's the new one for me.
Yeah, so they did a bunch. There's like Fate Stay Night, Fate Stay Zero, and I think the first one I saw was Night, but then like the next one that was released was a prequel, and a few of them felt a little more like teeny boppery than like the first one. But the first one was like really good. I really liked the first one. But yeah, I enjoyed that one a lot. So I was going to transfer over to our friend Andy, but he just left. So I guess the show's over.
No, I'm still here. Here.
All right.
So let me talk to you guys. First off, are you guys watching Picard?
Nope, I'm waiting until it's done so I can binge it all.
Honestly, I kind of fell off. Believe it or not, I'm such a dick. I fell off because I'm like, oh, really? Time travel again? Like, how often have we done this?
Well, and I like that
I was out.
I like that they did the exact same thing that they did in Voyage Home from when I was a kid. I was like, okay, well, I mean, at least they're consistent, right? Like that they're doing their universe's version of time travel.
I will say I agree. Time travel in the Star Trek universe, I mean, it's almost guaranteed at this point. At some point, the Star Trek series is going to have some sort of time travel aspect to it. But I can't get away from how well it's done. Not the time travel, just the show itself.
Oh yeah,
we're watching a Star Trek movie that really has nothing to do with space travel, right? We're really watching characters being developed and a story, that does not have anything to do with phasers and photon torpedoes or even tricorders, right? Picard is the last season as well, but this season even more specifically, it's way more about the people and the relationships and the goal, and way less about explosions, which is why I walked away from Discovery, because Discovery, I felt like in the first couple of seasons, yeah, they were in space, yeah, there's aliens, yeah, there's explosions, but it was a lot more about story and what's going on. And this current season, I mean, there was fucking fire jets on every scene, it felt like. And I'm like, I couldn't do that anymore.
I was struggling with Discovery because it didn't feel like Star Trek. Like Star Trek was always about exploring and interacting with cultures, and Discovery was all about going to war. Like it was like the whole show, and it was a struggle for me just because, you know, I grew up on Star Trek. Like I was watching Star Trek at like 5 years old, the reruns of the original, you know. Yeah. So you know, that wasn't really what the show was about for me.
I want to jump in. Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go.
Yeah, really quickly, out of curiosity, like I liked Discovery up until I would actually say this season. I would say that like I was waning actually even last season, but I will say that seasons 1 and probably especially 2 were my favorites, because when you saw Pike and you saw the Enterprise and all that felt cool. And I was okay with the whole warlike thing, honestly, but I just felt like after a while, like it kind of got a little too, you know, annoying. Got a little too agenda-ish. I'll just put it that way. Yeah. And I think that's the best way to put it, agenda-ish. And while Star Trek has always been about obviously being pro-social, I still feel like there was more of a timeless aspect of that pro-socialness before, whereas now it feels very, we're talking like it's too much. And so, well, yeah,
you're totally right. I mean, if you think about the original Star Trek, it was the first white man kissing a black woman on TV, and Shatner did it so many times to make sure it got on.
Yeah.
You know, and as much as the original Star Trek was agenda adjacent, but it was not forced. It was not written in the script. Yes. It was like, this is what we're going to do. Where Discovery does feel like what topic are we going to address today?
It's funny you say that, because there's a show, I don't know if you guys have ever watched A Million Little Things on ABC.
No.
It's like, when it was kind of coming out, everybody tried to compare it to This Is Us, because it seemed like it was emotionally heavy, but there was like this mystery in the first season that made it really interesting. Like, this guy kills himself, jumps off a building, nobody knows why, and like, it's all about the people that he's always been friends with in their group of friends, and how they're dealing with that, and how, like, why he did it kind of unfolds. And so it's actually really interesting and really good. And then it's like the show just turned a corner, and now it is literally like the issue or the two issues of the week, and I'm just like, fuck, can you just not tell a story? Like, I don't need every character. Like, I appreciate a story about issues, right? Like, issues are happening around us, they should be told, but like, I don't need every single episode to be like, oh my God, how hard is it to be a gay kid? How hard is it to be, Asian? How hard is it to be blah, blah, blah? Like, I get that's there, but like, maybe tell that every other episode. So it just doesn't, it literally feels like every episode is like an after school special. And you're just like, I can't.
Be more organic with it. And
Exactly.
I feel like, for example, I would say, we're going to go back to Picard in a second. But I think the masterfulness of like a Black Panther, for example, was I felt like a lot of the issues they were addressing were so organically woven in that unless you're even tuned into that frequency, it goes over your head, So, but if you are tuned in, then you're like, holy shit, they actually went there. So that to me is like, there's a difference between ham-fisted and finesse surgical. And I feel like maybe the older school Star Treks were more surgical with it, whereas now I feel it's very like, and it's just kind of like,
yeah.
So anyway, we're gonna go right back.
I think there's a trick to the old Star Trek too, in that it was actually harder to tell those stories, so they had to be more finessed, right? The white man kissing the black woman, they beat that until it got through, but like, it wasn't just something they could just do and be preachy about. Like, they had to work it in.
And can I say something? And one of the reasons why I'm even into science fiction in the first place, and I think it's one is science fiction has always been about allegory anyway. So it's like, that's why science fiction kind of exists, to handle like quote unquote radioactive topics, in a less radioactive way, because you're just putting it in different clothing. Like the Klingons being a stand-in for the Soviets, for example. Like, that's what it's all about. So why do you have to make it so blatant? You're kind of defeating the purpose of the genre. The genre is to actually make it palatable and swallowable. Anyway, all right. That's it.
Yeah. Back to Picard.
So first off, this is a conversation via a podcast, so there's never off topic. It's just the topic shifts. So don't worry about yourself. No, I totally agree about all of those things. It is interesting, and you bring up, of course, you did drop in Marvel, and I agree with you 100% on Black Panther. Probably more than 100%. I mean, it just, the topics they addressed without addressing them, and then putting them in a movie where you could watch it and experience it in a way where it was not forced, but you felt it. Perfect, beautiful. I don't even know how they did it. It doesn't even make sense. I will say, I am a little concerned with Miss Marvel, because I feel like they're gonna punch that Indian down our throat hard. And I got nothing wrong with anybody, but I feel like that seems very agenda specific. And then what's the other one?
Well, I don't know if it's agenda specific, in as much that it's just the character. Like, she really always has been in the comic books, and so I think she's going to get away from her parents. Like, Marvel made a really disappointing Avengers video game like 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, and it looked really great, and it had a ton of just fantastic voice talent, and it just wasn't a very good game, and they never could fix it. But her story was actually one of the primary stories in the entire game. And while she did have to deal with her parents being very traditional Indian, they definitely didn't beat it for as rough as that game was. They didn't beat the dead horse on that one. Like it was showing that, culturally speaking, like it was very different, and even their opinions on superheroes and their opinions on how people are supposed to live, right? Like Indian culture is very different than ours in that regard, and so it was well done. So I'm hoping they do the same thing with the show, because she's a fun character. She's a kid, so I think what it'll be is, I hope, is more about her being a little rebellious than it will be about just Americans versus Indian versus.
And I want to clarify, she's actually Pakistani American.
That's right.
She's Muslim, so there's no like Muslim Indians really. But I just wanted to.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
I just hope. Listen, I'm woke, but I'm not woke.
Oh God, sorry. I was trying to shift it back to like safer topics. Like let's.
All topics are safe. I don't want it to be. I want Marvel to stay the course of Black Panther and let us experience it and not force feed us. That's the thing.
Yeah, and I think again, I do trust Kevin Feige. I do. And it's like, and I don't think we're gonna get anything ridiculous. I think that, and there's nothing wrong in my opinion with representation, right? So like, for example, like, do I think I'll just say it, it's gonna like get me in trouble, but do I think that Captain Marvel was a bit, a little, I don't know, like just, yeah, I do. But I think that's okay, because it wasn't for me. It was for people out there who weren't maybe in superhero fans. There's so many fans of Captain Marvel who didn't like superhero movies until that movie. So it's for them. And that to me is like, awesome, cool, right? So it's fine. It doesn't take anything away from me. But do I think it was kind of not really on par with, like, say, a Civil War or Infinity War?
Winter Soldier. Yeah.
Winter Soldier, exactly. But the fans of that film are like, nah, that's the best one ever. Okay, fine. So I think it's cool that we're now kind of a more multicultural Marvel, because I think that before, and I think even Feige realized it. Like, it's like he even regretted casting what's her name as the Ancient One. The Ancient One was supposed to be Asian,
that was a mistake.
Yeah. So it's like Marvel was kind of, so they knew it. They were a bit clueless, but at the same time, they were just of their time. So now we're getting a more representative Marvel. And I like that, because there's so many different pockets to Marvel now. Everyone can have their shine. Okay. All I'm saying is Discovery isn't Marvel. Discovery is one thing. And you took a really great show, and now you've kind of turned it into, like, it is literally for a certain audience, and that to me is like, fine, but I'm off that train now. Let's see what Strange New Worlds does. That's where I'm at.
Right.
So I'm stoked for Strange New Worlds. I cannot. That's going to be so much fun. Now, I want to point out though something. Ancient One traditionally is a man, correct?
Yes.
Well, he's traditionally an Asian man. Yeah.
An Asian man, and the Ancient One was on screen during the what movement? The Me Too movement. So Marvel, I think, was pandering to that movement.
I think they just want to know. Tilda Swinton is a big deal. Like,
exactly.
I think that's more what it was.
I think so too.
They just wanted someone, and she played the part well. Don't get me wrong. Like, she
was fine.
Really
yeah, it was a casting mistake. Ultimately, like, not acting wise, she's a fantastic actress, but character wise, it was just
piece. It was like, seriously, like, is color so like antithetical to like commercial success that you're willing to like literally like just like, come on, man, and I think that's what Marvel's doing now. They're actually, no, we're so cool. Marvel is the point where they can set trends. They're no longer having to follow a trend.
Well, it reminds me, if you remember what I was talking about Yellowstone with Pete, I think it was last week.
Yes.
And how it's a little disappointing that their main Native American female character isn't full-blooded Native American.
Yeah.
I think if you're going to make that character in today's environment, just like you should with the ancient one. You should do it right. I mean, there's enough actors out there looking for parts that they're struggling to get, and to take a part away from an Asian actor or a Native American actor to give it to somebody that, you know, is not really, it's not really fair.
The
Like
ideal.
if you look at Moon Knight, they specifically worked really hard to cast Egyptian people in the show, so they have actual Egyptian actors, which, you know, if you're going to have a show take place in Egypt, you might as well look like it takes place in Egypt, right? Like, get the right people.
Authenticity.
And I think that's fair. I think you have to do that, especially if you have Marvel's money.
Yeah.
Right.
I totally agree. My only point with Tilda is that when she was cast, it was during the Me Too movement. And to your point, at that point, Marvel, I think, was following trends, not leading them. That's my only point. I do agree. I would rather have that be an old Mr. Miyagi type character as the Ancient One. That would make more sense to me than Tilda Swinton. She did a fantastic job. She's a fantastic actor.
Oh yeah, I love her.
She killed the role. I mean, she owned that role. She is the Ancient One to me in my brain now. She's the only person that is the Ancient One. But my point is that I think at that point they were like, we need to have some strong women in our movies, and they just picked the wrong strong white woman to play an old Asian man.
Yeah,
that's all my point.
Who is androgynous as hell, but I'm not.
True.
Yes,
but that's neither here nor there. But
yeah, it's not like they went with Rachel McAdams for that part,
exactly.
Right? You know.
Fair enough. All right, so I brought up a card. Halo. I know, Kevin, you're not a fan.
It's not so much that I'm not a fan. It's just like I've completely forgotten about it. Like, it's just not in my watch list anymore, and not for any reason. Like, it really wasn't bad. It just didn't grab me.
Yeah, it's not grabbing me that hard either, but it's about 40 minutes. So on the treadmill, it's like a really perfect time for me to watch it on a Thursday. So it's fine. I'm not disliking it. Actually, this week's episode was pretty good. They've spoiler alert. They've taken out their emotion inhibitor, 2 of them, so they can feel now. It's pretty good. It's not bad. I'm continuing to watch it. I'm not like abandoning it like I did Discovery. It's pretty good. It's I won't recommend it to watch, but if you're watching it still, I think you're probably where I am too, where it's like, okay, this is interesting. It is a retread of about 5 different shows for sure, combined into one, 100%. But it's not unwatchable. I'm enjoying it. I truly am. I'm not mad at it at all. So Halo's been fun. I watched Black Mirror like 4 or 5 years ago. I watched like 2 or 3 episodes just for shits and giggles, and that was fun. And then the girlfriend and I, we were like, we ran out of shit to watch, right? So I'm like, well, what about Black Mirror? You want to watch that? You know, it's definitely not necessarily her speed. It's way darker than what she likes to watch. I mean, she's a Miss Maisel. She's an Upload, which is, I mean, that's not dark, but it's different. But I said it's a series we can watch where there's no order. You can watch any episode at any time. There's no reason why you have to watch it in order, which is good for her because sometimes she likes to watch episodes when I'm not there. So we don't get out of sync. So we put that on, and we watched like 5 episodes now.
You gotta go through them, baby. I have my whole list. I ranked every episode 1 to 23. So I'm ready to go.
All right. So the first one we watched was the last episode in the whole series, which was the Sam Wilson, where they are.
Yeah, the avatars.
The avatars, where they're great friends.
Striking Viper.
Right. Yeah, Striking Vipers. Where they're great friends. They're clearly have an emotional connection together, and then they enter the game, and their avatars, which are male and female, let's just say.
Kevin, have you seen any of this?
The only ones I've watched are the Star Trek-ish episode.
Right.
I have seen the very first episode.
Yep.
I've seen the episode where like the guy has like video camera in his eyes, basically. Like it records everything.
Yeah.
That's the second episode.
Okay, that makes sense. I think I've watched like the first 3 episodes and then the Star Trek episode.
All right.
I may have watched more, but I don't remember. It's been a while. And I liked it. I just haven't gone back to it.
All right. And Andy, I wanted to jump here like as well. I like the fact that Striking Vipers had a Marvel and DC connection, because you've got obviously Falcon. You've also got Mantis, who is one of the avatars in that game. And let me tell you, why am I forgetting the name right now? But anyway, she was ridiculously hot in that episode. And it started a real crush on her from that episode. Continue, my friend.
Yes. No, it was Black Mirror is one of those things that make you question reality a little bit, because I was taught, after each episode we have a little conversation, and she's like, is that the future? I'm like, no, it's just kind of like a different version of this reality. It's not the future. It's not trying to show like this is what's going to be in 5 years from now. It's like, no, this is just a different reality. Each episode is a different reality. It's not necessarily futuristic or anything else. It's just different. Striking Vipers, right? You put a thing on your head, and all of a sudden, frankly, which is not far from the future, right? Right now, we put the VR goggles on, and we have our things, and we can sit back and play in this virtual world. I mean, how much of a stretch is it to put a thing on our thing and take over our nervous system and enter into a game and feel the feels of the game. Right. So, Striking Vipers, where these 2 men who are great friends have not seen each other in a long time, and then they get this game together where they can go into the game, and in the game they're male and female, and they make out, they have sex, right? So you have the attraction of what you're looking at with the attraction of how you feel about the person, and they're symbiotic, but they're divergent because it's different sexes, right? So, towards the end of that episode, Sam Wilson, meets Mantis, and they kiss, right? And they're like trying to figure out if this is a real thing or not. And Captain America says like, no, this is not for me. But yet at the end of the episode, one time a year, they go in the game and they get to have sex together, right? So that was a crazy, unique, different. It's odd. It's unique. Every episode is so crazy. I watched the episode Archangel, where when you're 5 years old, where you get
keep going. The overprotective mom.
That one, the helicopter mom. Yeah. That one terrified me. That terrified me because I'm like the opposite parent of that. Like I don't give a fuck where my kids are. I want you guys to fall down and get hurt. I want you to go smoke a joint and me not know about it. Like, and that's what I want you to do because that's how you learn how to be a human. And so to have somebody who can be told when your heart rate increases and when there's narcotics in your presence, like that stress, I couldn't handle that stress to begin with, and to have a device to tell me when that happens. I can't even imagine that.
Jodie Foster directed that episode.
Yeah, she did, and she did a great job. That was a great episode, but it was terrifying. And that was the girl from the mom was from 12 Monkeys. She was the that she was her. And then we watched that was Archangel, and We watched it where you can rewind your day, like you saw, Kevin, in your eyeballs. The guy from and that was the guy that was Dr. Doom from the failed
Miles Teller. No,
Fantastic Four. Miles Teller, Fantastic Four. Yeah.
He was Dr. Doom though. He was
in the movie though, right?
Yeah, Miles Teller was, yeah.
Well, yeah, but the guy. Anyway, number 4 in my top 23. That episode.
Yeah, that was super great. I love that. I really that was a really good one. A really fun one to watch for sure. Just crazy the fact that everything's recorded and you have access to that all the time, and you can delete it and rewatch it, and terrifying. And again, like how close are we to that?
So the show Black Mirror actually is supposed to, it's about basically the end of the day, like how we interact with technology. So your cell phone, when it's turned off, is a black mirror. So basically the show is an exploration of humanity. Like it's a mirror of us. Like, and does technology make us better or does it make us worse? Does it bring out the worst in us? And, you know, the way I interpret the show and the way I think the guy, I think his name is Charlie Booker, you know, most of it is actually like near future. So it's like, yeah, maybe 10 years off, you know. There's one episode, my favorite one, it's called San Junipero, which is clearly like.
We just watched that. That was the one that I walked in watching, just finished watching that. Yes, my favorite episode as well.
So did you actually got you got the credits where like, you know, you see them driving on the beach and everything?
Yeah. I left Allie's house. I cried too. I left Allie's house telling her this. I said, that could be where we are right now. We could be all.
We're in a simulation, dude. Come on.
I'll be plugged into a machine
I guess
right
Musk
now.
says so.
No,
but I mean, I hope not, because that would suck. I want to go to San Junipero, like because I mean, and I'll never think of the song "Heaven Is a Place on Earth" the same way. It was so well done. I think I was just, anyways. Kevin, you should. I want to send you actually my top 23 because I feel like there's there's some good stuff in here, man. And I want to say there's the second episode, because the first one's the one about the prime minister who has to like do, and that one put off a lot of people. Like a lot of people. And the second one actually has the guy who won the Oscar, and he was in Black Panther 2, and he was in Get Out. Anyway.
Yes.
That one is actually my second favorite episode. It's called 15 Million Merits. And it's a very dystopian one where all they do is like, you don't know what's happening. It's probably the future. They wake up in these little pod rooms, get on an exercise bike and ride these bikes all day. They're almost like slaves.
I did see that one.
That reminded me of my life in New York City, in my studio apartment, working at my old job. And I just identified with it. And it was like, and then he basically is able to kind of like, you know, win a prize or something, or he could go on a talent show. His girl goes on a talent show, does her thing, but then like some bad things happen to her. It completely disillusions him. He gets on the talent show, does some crazy shit, and then he actually is able to like break free of the man, but he's still part of the machine. But he fucks his morals and ethics. He pushes away. At the end, but I still think at the end of the day, that's like, I don't know. I think he actually has real orange juice now, not like that fake shit. Anyway. I liked it. It's true. It was an allegory for like life. So, but there's more. There's so much more, and we want to keep on time. But man, I would love to actually maybe talk about Black Mirror some more, as well as Lost. But I know we can't just talk about one particular show. But I really had fun talking about this because I could talk Black Mirror forever and talk about what it means for society and what it's actually trying to say.
Totally agree with you. We should probably maybe, Andrew, we should if we get not tired of Lost, but if we want to break from Lost,
we're not. Lost is protected.
I know. I'm in. I love Lost. but I'm saying I would love to get your top 25 episode, because we can watch them in your order, because there is no order to
we're gonna hook it up. I'm gonna send you my
Yeah.
list after this.
Yeah, that's gonna happen, because it'd be a fun thing to fucking do that. That'd be a fun thing to do. Because
It's streaming on Netflix right now.
Oh yeah,
it's it's on Netflix. Did you ever try the Bander Smash?
Okay, again, and the thing is, my list is subjective, so I actually ranked that one last. You know, because it's like, and I also did all the different endings, but I was just like, it didn't do anything for me. But
me neither.
But it did. I will never do LSD or acid, wherever the fuck the guy took, ever again. Because I mean, not ever again. I never did it. But like that, you know, if you got the episode, the ending where he jumps out the window. But I'm like, if that's what acid does to you, I have no interest. Anyway,
I mean, acid and shrooms do some crazy stuff to you.
I'm good.
Yeah, but
that heroin will never happen. Keep going.
The Bander. So
Kevin,
Bander.
It's the choose your own adventure kind of.
Yeah,
I know which one it is.
Choose your own adventure TV, where you gotta like. I'm not watching TV to click a button at certain points. I just want to watch. I did not like the interactivity of that. I didn't.
They've tried it on a few different shows, and I think it's already run its course. I don't think that works for television. And what's interesting is that video games are slowly getting to that point where they're getting closer and closer to playing a movie, right? But I think that still belongs to video games, and it doesn't belong to television. So if you want to do that, you play a video game. If you want to just watch, you watch a movie. Like, that's the whole point. So I think,
the Choose Your Adventure TV show feels like, 3D TVs. Like, great. I don't really want to do that right now. I just want to watch. I don't need to find my fucking glasses and plug them in and do all that bullshit. I just want to.
I bought a 3D TV. My big ass TV is a 3D TV, and it's great. But like, you're right. It's effort. You got to pull out your 3D Blu-ray. You got to plug that in. You got to put on your glasses, put those on. And then if you're watching at home, you have to sit at the right angle, because if you're at the wrong angle, it doesn't quite work. It's definitely more work than it needs to be. And for, at the end of the day, for very little. So for as excited as I was to get it, I was like, okay, that's neat, so.
All right. So I did, what's here? I started with Picard. I went to Halo. I did my Black Mirror, and I've dug in a little bit into DC. Just because I was looking for something that, before I go to DC, I for sure have been watching Moon Knight religiously. I'm really enjoying it. It is a fun entrance into the Marvel universe for Moon Knight. I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know necessarily how it's going to tie in. I kind of thought Moon Knight would tie into Eternals, frankly. I thought that somehow the Eternals would have been morphed into somehow, because there was that scene in Eternals where they were in ancient Egypt. Like, somehow the Eternals would be related to the Egyptian gods in some way, which so far is not the case. I've been enjoying it. I do think that Ethan Hawke could be Doctor Doom in the MCU. I think he's too big of an actor to be in a series on TV and not on the big screen at some point. It's too weird that we saw Latvia, or some version of what could be Latvia, in the first episode, to have him not be Doctor Doom. There's too many tie-ins to potentially him being Doctor Doom. That said, I don't know if I'm a huge fan of Ethan Hawke being Doctor Doom.
Yeah, I still don't see it happening because of his ties to Khonshu and his history there. I don't think that works with Doctor Doom. right?
Well,
Because you're changing a lot
totally
of Doctor
agree.
Doom's backstory there. So I mean,
You're
I wouldn't put it
changing.
past Marvel, but
Yeah,
I don't think they'll go that
you're
route.
you're changing 100% of I mean, there's zero. If he is Doctor Doom, you're not even retconning. You're just you're redoing it. You're making what the comics have non-existent and creating a new version of Doctor Doom. This would be on paper or on screen a brand new version of Doctor Doom. I'm not at that if that's what they do, but that is if that's the direction they go, that's what's going to happen. It's not Doctor Doom from what we know from the comics. It's a brand new version of it. Anyways, either way, whatever it is, I don't. It does seem weird that they're using Ethan Hawke, he's an A-list actor, for a series that he won't be a part of in the MCU after this. It does seem they could have picked somebody different, but anyways, it doesn't matter. I'm enjoying it. It's definitely interesting. This last episode, they introduced with a blind eye a new version of Mark Spector, which I'm curious to see how that plays out. So I'm really enjoying that. I do. To me, Moon Knight is on par with WandaVision. I would probably put WandaVision and Moon Knight right now at 1 and 2, depending on what episode I've watched. Loki at like a super close second, and then Winter Soldier and Falcon falling in the rear.
Where's Hawkeye falling there?
To me, Hawkeye doesn't even exist in that list. Hawkeye just was fun. Like it is. Hawkeye's an important part of the MCU for sure, but it was just fun to watch. Like I felt like I was watching. When we as kids on Friday night would sit down with our parents and watch, the sitcoms on Friday night. Well, hey, let's put Hawkeye on, and we put Hawkeye on. Like it felt like that. I loved Hawkeye for sure, 1,000,000%. It was so much fun to watch, but it wasn't anything like these shows. They're not in the same. For me, they're not in the same category. It was a show that was important to the MCU for sure, but I don't want to say it wasn't must-see TV, as I did watch it every Wednesday when it came out. But it was just fun to watch. I guess it was more episodic. Like I kind of knew what was going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen to Moon Knight next week. I have no idea.
Fair.
But with Hawkeye, you kind of knew that the track suits are going to come. Like you knew what was going to happen.
So you weren't pleasantly surprised when Kingpin showed up?
I was totally pleasantly surprised.
Okay.
But I knew it. I mean, did you not expect that?
Well, I mean, I hoped for it, but at the same time, I kind of just I still liked it. I liked the fact that he actually was, it just further confirmed the Murdoch thing. I remember when people were talking about Murdoch showing up in Spider-Man and all. I always you see my wall. It's not gonna happen. Yeah. This is false. Blah, blah. I'm never a non-believer. I'm more open-minded than closed-minded. So when people open to possibility, so I just felt validated. Like, you motherfuckers, like, when will you learn that Kevin Feige is the fucking man? I'm not a dick rider. I actually know I can recognize talent. Okay. And nobody on his caliber has actually ever existed as a producer in the history of Hollywood, period. We are witnessing greatness right now. Okay. So shut the fuck up and let the man do his job.
Do you find it interesting that fucking some bitch Moon Knight actor
what's his name? Apocalypse? Who? Oscar Isaac?
Oscar, yeah, thank you. You know, Oscar Isaac, he's an executive producer on that too.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's an
awesome.
EP on that. Yeah, I do find that interesting that he's an EP on that. I wonder if that should just get him the pay scale that he needs to be on the show. But anyways, I'm loving it. Totally huge fan, big fan. Anyways, I'll move on to DC. On the treadmill, I was looking for something to watch, and I was like, "Fuck, no." I'm like, Superman. I haven't watched that in a while, so I put Man of Steel on.
Yes.
That is my Superman movie. I love Christopher Reeves. No shade on what they did. Man of Steel is my Superman movie. I love it. It makes the most sense. It rings the most truth to me. It is fantastic. In my mind, I don't know how you can make a better Superman movie, period. I will allow.
I love Man of Steel, but I think it can be done. I actually do, and I think
I think it can be.
I think in the hands of Feige, he could do it.
But I think in the hands of somebody that's not Zack Snyder, it could be done better. I think Snyder, not to knock him, but he's too dark. He's literally the problem with DC right now, and not just like him, but the way that he makes movies, the movies that he makes. There's no humor in the DCEU until you bring in the Flash, who went out and got drunk and punched somebody and will never be in the DCEU again. So it's not something that they excel at, and it really, in my opinion, hurts their universe. Because I was having this conversation today. If you look at something like the Lord of the Rings, right? You watch those movies, there's humor in those movies, right? For everything that's going on, you've got Merry and Pippin, you've got your stuff that's funny. Where if you look over at Amazon and they do The Wheel of Time, that show was not good. And it had zero humor in it. Like, nobody was ever funny. It was fucking depressing, and it just wasn't good. And I'm honestly, knowing that Amazon is doing the Lord of the Rings TV series that's coming up, I'm concerned. Like, I'm worried that they're going to do a show that is too adult. Like, I don't want to watch Lord of the Rings with sex and boobs in it. Right. That's not Lord of the Rings, right? Like, Lord of the Rings is adventure and all that. Like, it should be accessible. There's no Lord of the Rings movie that your kids can't go watch, as long as you're okay with them seeing a little bit of violence and a little bit of, scary monsters and stuff. But there's nothing inappropriate about it. But there was humor, and there wasn't in
Wheel of Time.
In the Wheel of Time, and I think that's one of those things that really hurt that show. But speaking of DC, it's the same thing. Like, there's nothing fun in the DCEU. I love Superman. Superman is my favorite. I've got I don't know, hundreds of Superman comics downstairs. Like, Superman's my dude, and I love Henry Cavill as Superman, and I do love the Man of Steel movie, but it is not the right Superman.
So what I'll say is, as a kid, I remember watching Superman the movie on ABC. I think I was like 4 or 5, and I loved that movie. The first Superman movie I saw in the theater was Superman 3 with Richard Pryor. Ooh. And then afterwards, though, I loved seeing someone fly so much. I remember I would put a mattress down and then take a running jump and jump in the air, but then Mike smashed my face into a radiator. Me and my brother did. So we never did that shit again. Point is, I love the idea of flying. So I've always kind of had this like Jones for flying. So when Neo starts flying in like the Matrix 2 and 3, it was like a methadone shot. Like, I wanted that hit. And I wasn't getting the hit from there's no Superman movies, right? So I got that from the Matrix. Then, of course, I never forget this guy's name. I never remember this guy's name. but he did The Usual Suspects. Singer. When Bryan Singer did Superman Returns, I was like, this movie sucks. Sorry, I didn't like it. Okay. So when Man of Steel finally comes out and there's action and the score is incredible and I totally buy Cavill as Superman, I remember walking out of the theater going, the dragon, like I have now like caught the dragon, wherever the drug reference is. It's like
Chase the dragon.
I was chasing the dragon. I caught it. Like, I am now satisfied. My Jones has been fixed. Like, literally, I mean, even that final fight scene between him and Zod in Metropolis, I was like, yo, like, thank you. Like, this is way better than Smith and fucking Neo. So yes, I agree with Andy that this was an amazing Superman film. However, what Marvel does better than DC, we all know this, is Marvel actually understands the characters, and if anything, almost fleshes out the characters even more. Like, you know, I think Tony Stark is a much bigger cultural force now because of the MCU than he was when he was just a comic book character.
Oh, for sure. Nobody knew who he was. Like,
exactly.
He didn't matter.
So, you know, and Captain America, same thing. Like, Captain America now is a much bigger deal than he was before really Winter Soldier, you know? So
that's the whole reason that Sony only bought Spider-Man.
Correct.
So Marvel offered them everything. Yes. Marvel offered Sony the moon, and they said, no, we only want Spider-Man because he's the only one that'll sell. Right? Because nobody gave a damn about Captain America. Nobody gave a damn about, you know, all these other, you know, characters that they have, and Marvel fixed it.
Marvel could do this with Thor, Captain America, and Iron Man. Imagine what they could do with literally the dude who started it all. Imagine what they could do with him. Imagine, and it hasn't been done really right since, as far as a character goes, since 1977 or 78 rather, and 1980 with Superman 1 and 2. Like, those were much truer to the character than any other thing we've seen. And so just, yeah, dude. And I think we should probably move to you next, as far as like what you've seen to keep things moving.
Well, we'll let Andrew finish talking because we hijacked.
Are you still? Can you still hear us, Andy?
Yeah, he's got
yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. I wasn't sure. Okay, cool. All right. So
I'm with you.
All right.
No, I'm with you. So Man of Steel, I don't discount what you guys are saying, but I haven't seen what they could do with Superman. So until I do,
fair.
Man of Steel is still
the pinnacle.
That's my zenith right now. There's no better than that.
Right now.
For me, it's the end of Man of Steel that loses it for me. Just the absolute carnage in that just didn't work for me. Like, that was the thing for me that wasn't Superman. Like, he would do literally everything possible to not let that happen.
But he was still in training. That's my retort. Like, he was still in training. And I felt like
but then for me that's bad storytelling to like go with his biggest villain, then the guy that is, you know, effectively him.
So you consider him bigger than Lex Luthor?
Well, Lex Luthor doesn't have the power. So if you're going to do Lex Luthor, then you're doing a smarter story, right? Then you're doing a story about brains versus brawn, right? Lex Luthor and Superman have, at least in film, have never come to blows. And if you're going to bring Lex Luthor to come to blows with Superman, you got to put him in that dumbass purple suit, and that doesn't fucking work. So right. And somebody with good character design and a good artist could come up with something that would work. It probably wouldn't even be a purple suit. But Lex Luthor is a different character. When Superman goes up against Lex Luthor, Lex is one of the few people on the planet that is actually as smart as Superman. Because again, one of the things that it's like Batman. One of the things they never work on with Superman is he's fucking smart. Like, his brain works faster than a human brain. Like, everything about him, like everything about Superman, for as ridiculous as it has become since, 1932 or whatever it was, is ridiculous. You know, when he started, he could jump real high and he was real strong, right? Like, you know, and they've just kind of added to his power, but he's incredibly smart. Like Superman is incredibly smart. So that's why Lex Luthor is such a great foil for him, because Lex Luthor is also like ridiculously smart. But when you put him up against Zod is a Kryptonian living under a yellow sun. You know, he's Superman. You put Superman against Superman, it's the only fair fight there is. So you can do that. You can do Doomsday. You can do Darkseid. Like those are the like the epic level. But look at Marvel. When you put them up against Thanos, you didn't do it in the first movie. You wait. You know, so Superman should have been up against like literally anybody else. You can put him up against Metallo or something. You know, so
you're totally not wrong. 100%.
Keep going. Sorry.
DC is they came prematurely. I mean,
yes,
yes, it's true. That's true. And well, it was funny. Like, is Superman the only thing that you really watched when you're talking about DC, or do you have a couple others?
I watched the Ultimate BVS, which
garbage.
I think I
also
so
I
much.
That was garbage. That was garbage.
I thought the Ultimate edition of BVS was fantastic.
But for me, it's the same problem. You just go balls to the wall instead of building a story.
I don't disagree with your disagreements at all,
especially with the Martha line. The Martha line just negates the entire fucking movie.
I wholeheartedly agree with every negative thing you're saying, Kevin. 100%. I don't have a response for it. I don't have a way that I can work around that. I agree with you 100%. That said, it was a fucking great movie for what it was, for what they did, for how they did it. I loved it. It was fantastic. Go ahead. No, go.
I call it a high octane superhero art film. That's what I call it, because I feel like visually it's gorgeous. I like seeing Superman at night. A lot of the shots, especially the fight between Batman and Superman, were even kind of comic / cartoon accurate. Even him catching the bullet exploding, it was all like, it was gorgeously shot. Even when he's dragging Superman across the ground or the floor or whatever, and his red cape is flowing behind him, almost like blood, and he's kind of in a like a Christ-like pose. Like, it was just so, it's a beautifully shot film. And I am actually one of the few people who actually likes Lex in the film. I mean, I thought he played him smart.
I thought he was fine as a different take on Lex Luthor.
Yes,
and that was okay with me. He was, it's, you know, I'll find out on Monday what I think of the Riddler, because side note, Monday, The Batman, is dropping on HBO. So I will be watching that probably Monday night, like as soon as it drops. But like, for me, the Riddler being a complete and total, like, absolute psychopath doesn't fly for me when I think of the comics. Lex Luthor being like
Zuckerberg.
Yeah, it doesn't quite fly for me, because that's not who he is. I mean, and I would argue, you know, if you watch Superman Returns, Kevin Spacey wasn't quite right either, but he was close. Like, he was closer. Like, yeah, in a lot of the comics, like, literally, like, Lex Luthor's schemes were about real estate and money. Like, for as dumb as it is, he's got a lot of that shit in the comics. Like, there's a lot of Lex Luthor history there. But so anything else about BVS?
I mean, just well shot, well done. Music was great. Like,
I would give you Hans Zimmer all day, every day.
Yeah.
Like,
I can't. There's, until there is another movie similar to that, or it takes on those characters the same way. that is my pinnacle for sure. I did watch, Zack Snyder's cut of Justice League, and I can't find fault in that either. Until something comes better,
I can find so much fault in it.
I have no doubt in
I'm
that
with
at all.
Andy. I think it's the best that the DCEU has. Honestly,
Yeah.
I think it is.
Yeah, but the best they have is like being the fastest guy at the Special Olympics. It's you're still. It's just not good. And so knowing that those are the two things you watch, it brings me to my my topic, because I didn't watch shit. But my topic is Warner Brothers has just gone through a big change. So they have been, I don't know if they were acquired or what shift is happening, but they're merging with Discovery.
Yeah.
And the uppity ups, the highfalutin, important, smart people have finally stated that they need to take a step back, and they've literally said they need to find their Feige. Does that mean Cavill's out? Nobody knows. Does that mean Pattinson's out? Nobody knows. They don't know what it means yet. But it's interesting to me that like this has been said. I mean, I would love for our podcast to be the one to take all the credit for it, but it's been said by so many people that they just don't have that. And so I'm really like interested to see what happens if they take a step back. And this is what I've said before, is that I wish they would, put out everything that they've been working on, right? Let that finish, take a few years off, and sit down and come up with something that really works. If you're going to do the Justice League, if you're going to do the crossovers, for fuck's sake, if you're going to make the Wonder Twins movie, and
that just got casted.
Yep. And I don't like it. I like the girl. she's pretty. She's on 1883. Yes. And she's in a couple. She's on Young Sheldon for a little bit. So she's fine. She's a good actress. She's pretty. But I don't like the kid. I think he's the one from Riverdale or something like that. Or maybe I'm mixing him up with somebody else because I don't care. Right. But I'm just like, I don't want a Wonder Twins movie. But you know what though? To be honest, like if you put somebody ahead of that movie that understood DC the way that Kevin Feige understands Marvel, and there was an interesting story. I think it was on X-Men. Feige worked on, I think it was X-Men.
Yeah.
And they said that he was a fucking Marvel encyclopedia.
Yes.
Like anytime they needed to know anything,
go to Kevin.
You'd ask Kevin Feige, and he knew all of it.
He was Warren's assistant.
Yeah, like he was.
And Marvel Entertainment hired him away. Right,
exactly. And so DC needs that guy that just knows everything to come in and say that doesn't make, like, as much as I'm bashing on the idea of a Wonder Twins movie because I do think it's stupid. At the same time, when you told me you were going to make an Iron Man movie, I was like, why?
Exactly.
Now granted, I gave a whole lot more shit about RDJ than I do about these two teenage kids. Exactly. But do it right, and maybe it'll be good, and maybe that's your starting point, for getting back into DCEU. I think they still need to find their line, because you either had Batman versus Superman and Man of Steel, where there really wasn't any humor, and then you had Aquaman, which was just stupid. Like it was just all humor. Like I actually think that Wonder Woman walked that line better than arguably any movie in the DCEU.
It was the closest to a Marvel film.
Exactly, until the last like half an hour where it just went off the rails and it went to do a CGI dumpster fire. But like Chris Pine brought that, the charm and the humor, and that, he's a good looking guy. And so, I mean, that film worked until they screwed it up at the end. And I think that's where they need to get to. So it'll be interesting to see if they do find their person. But I was going to ask you guys, like, I don't know how well you know DC, beyond what we see in the movies, but like if you could start with one character in the DC like pantheon that wasn't Superman or Batman or Wonder Woman, right? You don't start with the big three. Like, who do you go to? Like, where would you start the DCEU?
Oh, man, Kevin, that's a fucking great ass question.
It's a brilliant question. And it would make me, honestly, like I actually have an encyclopedia. I would scan it. I would scan that shit. The same way, actually, that's how Star Trek 2 was made, by the way. So Nicholas Meyer, when he was given the reins, he literally went through, I thought him or Bob Sallin, I think, Robert Sallin. Either way, one of them knew nothing about Star Trek. They actually went and watched the whole fucking series. And when they saw Space Seed, they're like, that's it. You know, that's what I would do. That would be a great, fun thing to go through and just find the right fucking thing. And that's how Star Trek 2, the best of the original films, got made. Kevin, you're a fucking genius. That is a great question.
Yeah, and I think like if you're gonna go, it depends on what they want to do, right? Like for me, if they want to go the Justice League route, then they need to find a lesser member of the Justice League to work with. You know, and there's been a few. The gotcha for me for DC is that they've had a really successful run on the CW. So it makes Green Arrow harder to do. It makes Flash harder to do because those characters are still sort of alive on the CW.
Yeah.
CW. So I don't know who you go to. I mean, Green Lantern would be dope, but you can't fuck it up again.
Yeah.
You know?
So I would, if we're going to go, so sorry, if we were going to go, if we're going to be similar, I mean, I guess if we use the example of Marvel, we need to pick a human that doesn't have extra abilities, but just has, I mean, and not Batman, of course, but like Green Arrow would be a really good way to introduce in movie form the DC. Maybe you do Flash. I mean, he's a human with extra abilities. But the problem with DC is that almost every character they have
superhuman.
Yeah,
that I can think of is somehow super powered by some. They don't have a Hawkeye. They don't have an Iron Man. They don't have a Black.
Well, I mean, they do though. They like Ted Kord is the like the rich is Ted Kord the Blue Beetle?
I think it's Martian Manhunter.
Martian Manhunter is interesting.
That's who he would be a finalist in my book.
What you would do with that, which would be great, is literally do a detective movie, right? Mm-hmm. Like you don't have to, like, of course you have to get into the origin of Martian Manhunter, and the reason that would work, in my opinion, is a lot of people either don't know that origin story and would at least be drawn in like they were with Iron Man.
Yes.
Or at least you haven't seen it.
Yes,
so,
and he's still a key member of the league, and at least with what Zach established is that he was Swanwick, so he's literally just kind of always been there, like kind of blends into humanity. He's been a watcher, so maybe you almost see him watching the rest of the group kind of emerge. So you build the story off of his ass. We're fucking geniuses. We should be doing this shit.
That's what I'm saying. I've said it a million times.
I mean, Kevin's name is Kevin.
Yeah,
so, I mean,
for me, I would love to see. I would love to see a subtle Green Lantern movie, be with Hal Jordan as like the Hal Jordan from the comics. He's a fucking pilot. He doesn't have his powers.
How do you do a subtle Green Lantern? I mean,
well, number one,
Green
he doesn't
Lantern
have to have
Green Lantern.
He doesn't even have to have the green suit until like the last 10 minutes of the movie. You know what I mean? Like Hal Jordan in his bomber jacket with the ring is all you need. You don't need the costume. That's the thing. Like that's one of the things that made Aquaman not work, that made the Green Lantern movie not work, that makes these movies, is they just go full CGI and they fucking throw in the entire boat and it doesn't work. It's like what they did with Star Wars. They realized that practical is better than CGI. Like you can't lean into that. And I think if you did Hal Jordan, the fighter pilot, coming up, sure, you could have that big moment at the end, as long as you don't go full Wonder Woman, like we were saying, and go nuts. I think you can still make it work. It's more about Hal Jordan than it is about the ring in the first movie. Like Iron Man isn't Iron Man, all the time in the first movie, right? He's a dude in a cave trying to get out and working his way out of there.
But he's yes, he's in a cave, but the second half of the movie, he is Iron Man. Like, even out of the cave, he's come.
But it felt earned. I feel like Marvel does a better job of earning its moments, all of them. And yes. I feel like DC, like you said, it comes too quickly, and it doesn't feel earned. It feels cheap.
Yeah, and it's tricky too, because what is unfortunate about DC that Marvel actually had an advantage in this department is that nobody really knew the origin stories of the characters that they put out there, right? So you could do an origin story. You can't do a Batman or a Superman origin story anymore. It's a waste of time. Like, you have to start afterwards. You can maybe flash back for a minute or two. Man of Steel, they tried to do, instead of spending too much time with, his Earth parents, they dealt a little with Krypton, which isn't usually covered in the movies. So that was a different take on still trying to do the origin story a little bit. But it's just with Wonder Woman worked because people actually don't really know the story of Wonder Woman, I don't think.
Agreed.
But Batman and Superman, you have to skip over the origin story. You just have to. You can talk about it, but you can't spend 40 minutes on it.
You're right, but Marvel, a good example of Marvel doing this is with the recent Spider-Man, right? We had no Spider-Man origin story because we all know.
Yep. Yes, exactly.
We all know it. And I'm looking at, so this is the top 10. I don't know top 10. I don't know how many there are, but I'm looking at the top 10, top number. I don't know how many there are of the DC characters, right? So there's Batman, that's done. Mm-hmm. Superman, that's done. Nightwing has not been done, but you wouldn't start with Nightwing.
Actually, I mean, Nightwing wouldn't be a bad one to start with if you're going to skip the Batman and origin story, because you can then have an older Batman, because Nightwing will have graduated and become Nightwing. I think that could work. I don't know that that's where I would start, but somebody smarter than me could.
Man, they're already doing it with that show on HBO Max anyway. I feel
that's true.
Like,
that's true.
I'm kind of over the secondary, like, young group, whatever. I want
Titans.
Whatever they're called. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Keep going. Andy, keep going.
Yeah. It's just rough. Like, Nightwing could work, and they could if they did it right, they could tie it into the DCEU, right? They could tie it into the jokes on you, Batman.
We really haven't seen Robin at all, really.
Yeah,
not since the 90s.
Totally. Green Lantern, Martian Manhunter, Aquaman, Green Arrow, which I think could work. We have the Shazam movie that's coming out, but fucking Shazam, I'm bothered with Shazam, actually, like, tremendously, because sorry, I gotta close this window. With Shazam, I like the Shazam movie, except for at the end, when all of a sudden we had 10 Shazams. Like, you just watered down Shazam by making there's 7 of us now that have the ability to Shazam. I don't know.
Yeah, my argument with Shazam, I know they wanted to introduce the Marvel family, and that's fine, I guess. I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. But what bothered me the most is that movie couldn't quite decide if it was for adults or kids.
Yeah,
there was some stuff that was super kiddish, and then some stuff that was super adult. And
boardroom scene.
Yeah, exactly. All of a sudden, there's a shit ton of demons, and a dude gets pitched out the window to his death, and you're just like, what the fuck? Like, so it was
Lionel Luthor, by the way.
Yeah. So
I DC still has plenty of problems to deal with, and I look forward to the day where they don't. But I don't know when that day
when Disney
out
buys them. That's
when exactly right. I mean that I really I don't know what it will take.
They'll cast Chris Evans as Superman and call it a day. You know,
God, I hope he never would take that role. But to your point, like, I'm glad that DC is hoping that they will look for Kevin Feige to take the reins, and they realize, like, we just got to let go and let somebody else make these choices that are way more close to the material than we are, and we will just not. We will just look at the numbers at the end and not worry about how we get to the numbers at the end, because they've been way too attached to figure out how to make money rather than trusting somebody to make the money.
Yeah, and you can see it with Snyder's films. They actually had a lot of, upper office, intervention. So that's why, Snyder had to make his cut and put the effort in to have that cut come out. It's because people were telling him, people from outside that don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Or like, you can't do X, Y, and Z, or you have to do X, Y, and Z. And he's like, this isn't the film I'm trying to make, So to that regard, it was unfair, like to put Zack Snyder's name on it and then have it change. And then for the disaster that happened to Snyder, I feel for him in Justice League for sure. Like, that was absolutely tragic. But then to bring in Joss Whedon and just have Joss Whedon, Whedonify a Snyder film doesn't work either. You got to bring in a guy that has at least a similar vision to Snyder, or reshoot the whole fucking thing with somebody that has a different set. You can't just change midstream. It doesn't work.
Reality is that if I feel like if we had Zack Snyder's original vision for BVS and Justice League, and frankly, if you think about it, Suicide Squad was probably tethered somehow, right? There's not a director's Suicide Squad cut, but I'm sure he was somehow tethered as well.
Oh, for sure. I mean, they want or he wants his own cut. I know Ayers wants his own cut.
Totally. So if we had untethered cuts for all of those, I still think Marvel would be ahead of the curve.
Yes.
But I think it'd be a lot closer to, especially if they were introduced with their cuts, not like 6 months to 3 years later, where you get the director's cut. Like, if they went to market with the cut of the vision of the director, untethered.
I want to say something.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go for it.
So this is like you're getting a little bit of unfiltered Andrew. So I have a joke where I say 99.9% of dictators ruin it for the 0.01% of dictators who do a good job. So what I'm basically saying is Kevin Feige I would be awesome. Kevin Feige is that 0.1%, because the thing is, Marvel is not a phenomenon of talented directors. No. Marvel is a phenomenon of a talented, honestly, creative dictator who basically says, this is the through line. I'm going to hire people who I trust to execute on the vision. And I'm hiring you because I know what you can do. But you still have, at the end of the day, have to fit into the framework that I have put together. Okay. But the thing is, finding someone of that caliber who's able to literally have that kind of vision to corral these fucking directors into one like voice is literally it's a needle in a haystack. And any other dictator creative director is going to fuck it up, which is why they don't do that. They don't. So for me, it's like, it's not about I don't trust directors at the end of the day. I think directors are good at making their own vision, but can they actually can they really fit in and cooperate into a macro storyline, just unfucking like controlled or unfucking whatever monitored? No, they can't. Like Kevin does it, but the thing is, he has that rare gift of being a complete nerd, right? But at the same time, he has a business sense, and at the same time, he's good with people. Like, he actually is able to get these talented ego motherfuckers to cooperate. He actually calls up and hangs out with the actors. Like, he actually is involved with casting. He's amazing. So again, not deriding. I'm actually just calling it for what it is. But don't get it twisted. Kevin will get rid of you. Like, I believe Homegirl, who directed Wonder Woman, was attached to do Thor 2, and because she couldn't fucking follow the fucking line, he fired her ass. Got rid of the original director of Ant-Man, okay? And he's like, well, yeah, too bad. But what have you done lately, homie? Nothing. If you would just follow the fucking rules, maybe you'd be milking the same kind of money that the other directors who actually can follow directions do. Like, check your ego at the fucking door. What the Winter Soldier says, I forget his name right now, but I remember he says with Kevin, he establishes a rule of a place where it's the best ideas win. It's not about the ego, it's the ideas. So, but at the end of the day, someone has to, the buck stops with someone, and it's with Kevin. So David Ayer's original cut might suck. I think Snyder is a gifted visual storyteller, but that's about it. Sorry, so like the Justice League Snyder cut is like way too fucking long. It didn't need all that shit, but it is a better product than the original. So that's the end of my rant. I just want to say directors are dope, but you need someone on top of those directors to make
it's like we talked about with Tim Gunn and Peacemaker. Peacemaker is a very Tim Gunn show. Like
James Gunn or Tim Gunn?
Sorry, Tim Gunn. No, James Gunn. Yeah. Tim Gunn is the gay guy on Project Runway, who I love. Tim Gunn's awesome. I just need to get my guns straight, or gay. But James Gunn.
Oh, you did there.
Yeah, but James Gunn, Peacemaker is very much his style of film, right? And if you look at that compared to Guardians of the Galaxy, they're not super far off, but he worked with Feige and said, this is, I'll follow your rules. I'll create my characters. They won't be over the top. This won't be gory and disgusting. We won't do the things that he is known for, but he still made a good set of films. And now he's also said that when he's done with Guardians 3, he's done. Like, he's not gonna, he won't be back with Marvel. And he hasn't said it with any animosity. He hasn't been shitty about it. It's just, I think he got the opportunity. He made the movies, he worked along and did just fine. But he also knows that, maybe he doesn't want to be tethered in that way. And that's fine. Like I said, he knew the assignment. He followed the assignment. Is working it through to the very end, and then he'll be on his way, and I think that's totally fine. Just like you said, like the dude from Ant-Man could have done that, could have made a couple more Ant-Man movies, pulled in a shit ton of money, and then gone off and made all his own films. But instead, he's out there, wishing he had made Ant-Man, So yeah. So anything else from DC that we want to cover?
Well, the only other thing I'll what was the we had the, not the Lobo series, but what was the
Krypton?
Krypton. I dug that.
I still haven't watched it, and I've always kind of meant to, because it takes place before the fall of Krypton, right? Like it's we're leading up to
during the fall. I dug that series. Like, it was a fun show to watch, and it was interesting to see Lobo coming. We had not Megamind, but what's the
Brainiac
come into picture. Like that was well done too. I liked that. That was a good series.
Yeah.
Krypton was fun to watch. It made sense.
And TV works for that. I don't know that it would work in a movie, but TV worked for that. Like Smallville was a totally different take on Superman because they weren't doing Superboy, but they were doing Superman before he was Superman, and so they were telling a completely different story, and that worked for television. Again, I don't think it would work for a movie, but it was cool to see that whole, and it's crazy to see it go 10 years, and they're actually going to bring it back as an animated show. Excellent. So they're gonna get the voice actors, Tom Welling and Michael Rosenbaum. I don't know if it'll be Kristen Crook or if it'll be Erica Durance or who else will be in it. But they're gonna do an animated, because they did a comic for a while that was Smallville season 11, I think is what they actually called the comic.
Oh.
But they're gonna bring it back in an animated form, and I'm totally down for that. Like, I think it's cool. It's a little universe that they could continue and do a good job with. But it's not a story that would have, I don't think, worked on the big screen.
I will say,
Agreed.
as far as DC goes, and I just haven't made time to watch it, but from what I did see, I actually liked Superman and Lois. I
love Superman and Lois.
I didn't, when I saw pictures of Tyler Hoechlin as Superman, in I guess he was on Supergirl or whatever. Mm-hmm. I wasn't buying him.
Okay, so I was the same way until he showed up. His first scene, he shows up and there's a little kid in danger. He protects the kid, right? He saves the kid, mm-hmm. and then he turns around and he has this real smiley happy moment with this kid, and I was like, that's fucking Superman. Correct. He, in my opinion, for as much as I love Henry Cavill's Superman, he is the best modern Superman by a long shot.
Agreed. That's why I brought it up, because I felt like it would be a shame not to mention this show on this DC conversation. Mm-hmm. He's actually doing a really good job. And if I made more time, basically it is getting a little bit Dawson's Creek-ish, because obviously the two kids are moving to a farm and they're all fucking emo and shit.
They don't burn too much time. They definitely have their stories, and it's not a Superman show. It is a Superman's family, and so it's more about that. But that works because it lets Superman be a human character instead of just a dude that can fucking do everything. Yeah, God. Superman is, at the end of the day, with what they have done to him, like I said, over the last 90 years, they have turned him into an absolute monster. He's I think in one version of the comics, he sneezed and wiped out a fucking solar system. They've done such dumb shit in the comic books with him that he's so overpowered, that he's literally a god in the comics. So you got to be careful, and I think Superman and Lois does a fantastic job of that. He is not, he's strong, obviously, and he can fly, and he's Superman. He has all Superman's powers, but they do some really cool stuff on that show. Okay. And I think it's actually an excellent version of Superman. We'll have Pete back next week, unless he finds something better to do with his stupid family or whatever. What a loser. I hope. Yeah. He's lucky his kids still like him. I don't even know what that's like anymore.
And Pete, though, I love you. I know we've been high school buddies and everything, but just saying, we finished the show in record time, homie. Just saying, maybe
yeah,
back a little bit.
you're not pointing fingers, but at the same time, you're kind of nodding your head, tilting your head towards that son of a bitch.
And I talked a lot too. I did. I really, if Pete was here, it would be a 6-hour episode. So,
and maybe you guys are fire and gasoline. You put you two together, and it just, Although I don't know what happened last week. Last week's episode was the longest fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. Dude, it was. I think we recorded for 5 hours. I'm not kidding. I think it was just under 5 hours. It was a long episode. So with that, to anybody that's listening to this one, we kept it short for you this week. You're exhausted from whatever you've listened to, from what Pete put together the last couple of weeks. So thank you for watching and listening. Thank you for downloading or streaming. We hope you enjoy the episodes. Don't forget to like, subscribe, tell your friends, leave comments. Tell us what you think of Andrew's hair or Andy's hair. Tell me you wish you saw my hair, but I'll never take off my hat. But yeah, just enjoy, and we hope to see you next week. And have a great week.
Cheers.
So, shit, we did it. We had a reasonable length episode. My wife is less likely to murder my face. I go to bed at a reasonable time. We're gonna spend Easter playing laser tag tomorrow, so that'll be fun.
That's amazing.
Good.
Yeah.
You actually have a kit, like you have laser tag?
No. We have an actual little laser tag place down the road.
Nice, kicking it open.
And they're open. Yeah. I mean, nothing says Christ is risen like shooting your kids with laser guns. So that'll be fun.
And now, Deep Thoughts by Andy.
Like last week was my parents' 50th wedding anniversary party that my brother and I threw. 75 people at my parents' house, caterer, speeches.
Wow.
It was basically a wedding at my parents' house.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's a lot. Monday I was toast, and we had huge problems with the caterer. Huge problems. Not to sound bougie like we had a caterer, but the guy he showed up. I had to text. He was supposed to be there at 11. I texted him at 11:30, like, "Hey, are you coming?" And he didn't show up. There was no food ready when it was supposed. It was a mess. It was all a mess. But the worst problem still created the best day. So it was. My parents had a really nice time. But yeah, it was a rough one.